Hey guys, my neighbors are having a party so that the sound might come in. Hello there. I'm just giving people a chance to get on before I get into this. And it's exciting. Okay, let me see, okay. Share screen. And this one. Okay, guys, we all said, hi, Ken. Hi, Merle. Hey, Andrea. Hi, Hannah. Hey, Heather. I think I said hello to everybody who said hello to me. So the money in your body, because I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it again. You have everything you need in your system. It is just that it hasn't been brought online yet. So we're going to look into it. Some of this you already know, some of you already know this, from a different perspective. What today is going to be about is really setting the context, right? It's like I really want you to get the context in this and why we're talking about the codes. So what we're after, and I'm sure you're all going to agree with me, right? It's like you want sustainable and consistent money overflow. It's what you want, right? It's like you don't want the income roller coaster where some days, or it's like a roller coaster, right? It's like you can have several months where you make a lot and then nothing. It can be several years of making a lot of money. And I want you to think about this, because the roller coaster can actually take years for each turn. It doesn't mean it's not the income roller coaster, but it just takes longer time. And we're going to look like that. It can be days, it can be hours, it can be months. Typically, we look at it, monthly income, right? So the income roller coaster is like some months you make a lot of money, especially when you're launching something. And the other one you don't want is like minimal money overflow, right? It's like, yeah, you're making the expenses, you're having a little bit more, but it's not as much as you really want. So it's like kind of you settle for, well, you have some kind of money overflow. So you should be happy with that and not want more, right? And we have the no money overflow situation where you're just barely surviving. And I'm going to be upfront with you. I spent most of my time as a spiritual entrepreneur with no money overflow. Or a negative money overflow, right? Which is like my debts increases and I've had to take a job, to make ends meet. But it's like definitely all of these I have had my go at. So this is we after the sustainable and consistent money overflow, right? Sustaining meaning it's just going to keep going, rather than you always have to like push and push and push and push. And it's like, it's not sustainable. Okay, here's another month where you have to push to make money. And because it's sustainable, it becomes consistent. So this is really what we're after. So here's a bit about me. I don't quite look as made up as I do on this picture, but you guys might not know it. I got a master's degree in geophysics, which I never used for anything except a research scholarship. And I'm from Denmark, for those of you who don't know me. So, but since 1991, I have been a spiritual entrepreneur, and my work, like how it has been coming out, has been changing over the years. And it used to be like I would go 3, 4, 5 years with something, and then I would change it. So it's just really strange to think back to when I first started, when I was doing massage therapy and working with emotional healing. And yeah, so the way I kind of ended up in this, I think I'm going to share this. I was doing an exercise, it's like way back when, in the summer of 1991, to find my purpose in life. And it's very interesting that the purpose I found then was to be a powerful healer, which I wouldn't use the word healer today, but like somebody who helps people get in touch with the power, like animate the power codes. But it has come out in different ways ever since then. I was like never stopped doing that. Even when I had to take a job in a kindergarten, that's what I was doing with the kids. I was doing like yoga with them and emotional intelligence and all kind of things with the kids. So just like them. So it took me until 2019 to actually learn something to create any kind of consistent money overflow. And I tried everything. I mean, for these 28 years, I tried everything. And, you know, I did have the income roller coaster. It was like a couple of months, you know, every 3-4 years, I would make a lot of money. But, you know, 95% of my time, I was like, you're barely scraping by. And you wonder why I didn't give up, right? I'm like stubborn as hell. I knew there had to be a way. If other people could make money, I could figure it out too. And the search went on. And it wasn't until I found Shadow Alchemy, which is when it all changed. And within 1 year, I started, you know, making more than 50,000 per month as a business coach and a Shadow Alchemy trainer. And then it all tanked. And it tanked because I'm going to come back to this later, but I wasn't animating the codes of power. So this is why I'm coming back around to Shadow Alchemy still works, but you got to animate the codes of power. And this is what I'm going to be focusing on a lot in this challenge in my upcoming mastermind, is also about animating the codes of power, which Shadow Alchemy definitely has a place in it, but it's not everything. So this is sort of my story. So I have lived everything I'm going to be talking about, right? It's like I've been to the crucible, I've been through the forge, and, you know, I'm here living what I'm going to be teaching you. So let's look at it. I want to talk about the 3 levels of life mastery. And if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and hit me with them. I got my laptop up so I can actually see it. Actually, if I make it bigger, then I can actually see it without squinting too. Okay, so 3 levels of life mastery. And this was sort of like first time I really got like the sheer power and the sheer importance of doing the Shadow Alchemy. It's like something just clicked and this all fell into place. And I haven't shared it a lot, you know, some of you might have heard it, but it's still really, really important. So on the top level, you know, it's like the surface level of life mastery is the one we kind of encounter as we go about living our life in our 3D world. It's symptoms, right? What are your symptoms? Your symptoms are what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What choices are you making? What behaviors are you exhibiting? How much money you have, right? This is a symptom. How much money you have is a symptom of something else, something deeper. It's a career you have chosen, whether it's your own business or working for somebody else. And it's, you know, what kind of relationships do you have? Do you have any, you know, what are they like? So basically what I call of symptoms, which is like the surface level of, you know, the top level of your life mastery, is exactly what your life looks like. Your life looks like, right? It's like, this is just the top level, the one we see first. Now, why is this what your life looks like? We go down and look at so to fix the symptoms, right? There's a lot of methods out there. This is where you apply like affirmations, your journaling, your NLP, and a million other methods, cognitive behavior therapy, the 12 steps, the visualization, the life coaching, the vision board. It's like there's so many methods out that addresses these specific thing. And I want you to look at this like feelings. What you feel is also a symptom, right? What you thought, your choices, how much money you have, it's also a symptom. So I could add like even like business coaching to this, right? It's like change the symptoms. You know, this is what marketing coaching or business coaching and all these things, you know, this is also about changing the symptoms. So we look at the causes of these symptoms, right? Your paradigms is really what creates your thoughts, feelings, choices, behaviors, you know, how much money you make, etc. So a paradigm is how you understand the world to function. And out of that understanding of how the world functions, your thoughts and feelings and beliefs, beliefs are going to arise. So I actually put beliefs here. It could also go up in the symptoms. It's somewhere in between, but your paradigms determine your choices and your thoughts and your feelings. And everything else, of course, comes out of this. So an easier way of understanding a paradigm is, think of a volcanic eruption, right? And it's not surprising that I choose this example because I'm a geophysicist who study volcanoes. But think of a volcanic eruption, right? And then, think of how we understand it today. It's the pressure of the magma. When the pressure gets big enough, when enough magma has penetrated up, then it has to crack and it comes out and you got the eruption. And you can monitor it with earthquake monitors, etc. But, a long time ago, it's like we didn't have this scientific understanding, right? So for, back then, it was like about the gods in the volcano being angry, and you had to sacrifice people to appease the god, right? And because we have two different, it's like look at how different our paradigms are on how the world functions, how the world works, right? It's like one is the god is angry, and the other one, oh, it's a magma pressure, right? We don't have to sacrifice anybody, to get the volcanic eruption to stop, as we, would think back then. So because those people, they believe the god was angry, right? It's like they, I don't know, I'm definitely making this up, but, maybe they'll create a religion about the god in the volcano, and they will have specific rules that they would restrict their choices so that they would not make the god in the volcano angry, it's, and, maybe somebody thought that, oh, if we make the god in the volcano angry, if we ate potatoes, so therefore you're not going to eat potatoes, right? And whoever chose to eat a potato, like, they did the wrong thing, and they will get kicked out of the tribe. So how you understand the world's work is really something that matters here. So, another thing that causes this is life events. And, we all know about traumas, right? We all know about how important traumas are for how you show up in life. And so when I say life events, it's just like, how was your life, How's your life been? Did you have big traumas, no big traumas? Did you grow up in an alcoholic family? Did you not grow up in an alcoholic family? Were your parents codependent? Were they not codependent? It's like, this is life events. So the past life, for sure, right? It's one of the things I did a lot to try to make a lot of money was really go in and look at my past lives and heal those. And I certainly had some very negative experiences of money from my past lives, which definitely influenced me. But, they were past lives. What do they have to do with what I choose today? Or still just a cause, right? And your ancestral heritage, I don't have any rich people, in the last few generations. And your energy body, right? We all know that your energy creates your life. So if you want a different life, you change your energy to change your life, right? It's like whatever is encoded into your energy body is like what manifests in your physical reality. So these are all the causes, right? And I just put a few things down here, like trauma work, past life therapy, energy healing, shamanic work, that can do the ancestral heritage. But that's the second layer, right? So on top, we have like the facts of our life. Then we have this like, why do we have these things? But we want to go one layer deeper, which is where we go to the codes. And when I say codes, it's the codes of consciousness, it's energetic codes, it's the archetypal codes. But the way I want you to think about it right now is like these codes create like a operating system in your consciousness. And the operating system can be set to help you not make a lot of money. That's not actually something you don't want to have worldwide, but it can be geared to not making a lot of money, or it can be geared to making a lot of money. just examples, right? It's like way bigger than just the money. And it really, really began to land for me when I realized that my operating system in my consciousness determined everything. It even determined my paradigms, right? It's like the level behind the paradigm, because why do I have the paradigm I have? Like, why do I understand my life to be what it is? It's because of the codes in my consciousness, the operating system that's running my consciousness. And whatever these codes are programmed to do, it really helps, you know, to think of it as a computer, right? Because if you're trying to run like, you know, like the newest Canva version on a computer that's 25 years old, the operating system in the old computer is not going to allow you to, you know, use this very delightful app that's called Canva, which is for graphics, right? It's like your operating system is what's going to allow you to create or not create. And what's going to help you change the codes in your consciousness is the art and science of shadow alchemy. So this is kind of where we start. And I know that some of you already have been around shadow alchemy. I also know that some of you have had the same journey I've had, where you used shadow alchemy to make a lot of money, and then it collapsed. And I'm going to come back to this, because the reason it collapsed is we didn't animate power codes, and shadow codes was like nasty in holding us. So this is how it goes, right? The codes is like the deepest layer, which is like the consciousness, the codes in our consciousness operating system. These codes create our energy body. They create like our paradigms, you know, even how, I mean, it's like even our past lives, ancestral lineage, you know, the reason that they can still affect us is because they fit with the operating system in our consciousness. And then these then give rise to the actual facts in our lives, which I think of as the symptoms. So we have two kinds of codes running in our system, right? Yeah. The collapse, oh man, yep, the roller coaster. So we have two kinds of codes already in us. They're already in us. And this is why the title of this live stream today is The Money in Your Body, because you already have the right codes for it in your body. One kind of codes is shadow codes, the other is power codes. So shadow codes, which we're going to look at in depth first, are codes that has to do with surviving. And I cannot emphasize that it's about surviving, and that's all. You will never be able to thrive, aka create money overflow, more than every now and then bursting through it. It's like it's an operating system. These codes create an operating system that only has one very narrowly defined function, and that's survival. They can't go beyond their codes into something else than survival. And it's really, really, really important to understand this, right? They can only keep you alive, and that's it. They can't take you any further than surviving. It is not in the codes of shadow. So why do we have these shadow codes? Which is because from the dawn of time, right? You go way back when in, oh, I didn't even realize it looked like the night sky over on the right side above the fire. Okay, so way back when, and this is a saber-toothed tiger, by the way, way back when, at the beginning of the human evolution, right? Life was dangerous. Life was very, very dangerous. You know, we didn't have houses, we didn't really have clothes, you know, we didn't have electricity, we didn't this and da. You had to go out and kill the animals, you know, it's not like good job, you know, drop down to the grocery store and buy your food, right? It's like life was very different, and it was dangerous. I was like this is what I really want you to take in here, you know, because shadow codes is about surviving. And from the earliest time of human history, it was about surviving. It's like your whole consciousness was just focused on survival. And you think back like millions of years, right? So this operating system that of shadow codes of surviving, right? It's like they have run the human consciousness until just very, very recently, when enough, a critical mass of the population has gone beyond the need for just like day-to-day survival. Which has just happened in the last couple of 100 years. But it's like, think about this, like a couple of 100 years compared to millions, 1 or 2 million years, I don't have the exact times, but it's so ingrained in our bodies, the survival codes, right? So if you just think about it, fight, flight, freeze, it's a physical thing, right? It's a very, very physical thing that is like just deeply ingrained into the most primitive parts of our brains. So the fight, flight, freeze. And how it shows up in our day-to-day life, which is still the ones running us, even if it's not like as dramatically as we see here. But take fight codes, right? It's like when you feel powerlessness, it's like you go into a battle, it's like blaming others, you're getting into a fight, you're fighting yourself, right? You're at war with yourself, you're beating yourself up, this is unfair, or you're trying to force things to happen or manipulate things to happen. These are all, expression of the survival fight codes, right? We're fighting to make our lives the way we want it, or we will manipulate ourselves to, get other people to like us better, right? It's like we're fighting for our survival still, it's like the whole blaming somebody else. It's like, spoiled brat attack. It's like, this is all the fight codes that are still running our system. It's just like, it's not as physical anymore, but it's still in our consciousness, right? So when shadow codes, the survival codes are running our system, this is what we will do. We will activate these codes. We have no choice, right? This is our consciousness and the codes in our consciousness. This is an operating system in our consciousness. We have no choice, except we do, right? So the flight codes is avoiding anything that looks risky, also called don't go too far and too often outside your comfort zone, right? It's like we'll do it a little bit and then we'll come back and we will open our eyes and say, it's like, oh my God, I fell into my comfort zone again. Just when you have convinced yourself that you were done with that, you're right back in it. Denial is like, we don't want to see what's happening. Minimization, holding yourself back. Somebody was answering, my question about like what were your biggest aha moments, from doing the pre-challenge assignment. Holding myself back. If there's not a flight, the whole avoiding thing, holding yourself back, it's like pulling back, right? The laziness. It's a way of like avoiding also. Procrastination is avoiding, analyzing, keeps, if you can just analyze, you can avoid taking the actions that might have a repercussion you won't like. Or our lovely codependence, which is over focusing on others, right? It's like running away from yourself, running away from your, what you want to do, that you would have to do in order to get your dream life. And I want to say here, it's like having worked so much with the, getting people out of shadow codes and into power codes, it's like minimization is rampant, guys. Minimization of the impact of the shadows and how much they are running you is like unbelievable, and very guilty of doing that myself. It's like, so you really need to, lost you. Let's see if I can get you back over here. You guys, am I with you or am I still gone? Okay, now I'm back. Awesome. I'm going to put my computer over on the other side of the desk, my laptop. Okay, so what was the last thing you heard me say before I froze? What was the last thing I said, guys? I'm still spinning here. Holding you back. So holding you back, holding you back. So did I talk about the laziness, the over-focusing on others? Did I talk about this running away from self? Yeah, holding back, running away from yourself. Did I talk about minimization? Did you guys get that part? We talked about minimization. Okay, so holding yourself back. So the laziness, right? It's like the no minimization for you, Heather. What somebody wrote in, okay, somebody wrote in the pre-challenge assignment was, you know, they were holding themselves back. And yeah, avoiding anything risky. Yeah. Okay. So let me just go through this again, just to make sure I cover this. Like, so the flight code is that you play it safe, right? You don't do anything risky, which would, you know, to why do I keep freezing up? Let's see if this works. Okay. Okay, I think I'm back now. So anything risky would mean, of course, anything that's outside your comfort zone, and we can all push ourselves outside the comfort zone, but we're always going to fall back to our comfort zone again, because this is what our survival coach is going to make us. Awesome, guys. I'm back. Yeah, I can see myself move. So it's about playing it safe, right? And of course, you're going to take risk, but to really take risks that feels, the stakes are very high, threatening. It's like anything that's too risky, too far out of your comfort zone. You might do it a little bit, but then we're going to collapse. So denial and minimization. Denial is, of course, you know, the shadow code's not running my life. I mean, it's like the biggest here. It's like, I have my power codes active. I know how to make money. It's like, maybe not. The biggest thing here that I see is a minimization that I often see. Yeah, if they're stealing my, if they stole my password. The minimization is the one I really want to address here, because this is what I see people doing with shadow codes all the time. I mean, it's easy enough to recognize these in yourself when you're holding back, and you know, but the minimization comes in not being willing to see how strong a chokehold they have on you. I mean, they're really going like, right? It's like they're really putting you in a restraining jacket, putting you in a tiny small box, you know, where you can't breathe, you can't move. And people are not willing to see how much impact having the shadow codes, you know, as the operating system in your consciousness is actually having, right? Because it's painful. It's really, really painful to see how you're doing this. It hurts, you know, and this is one reason why, you know, I don't know if all of you guys, you know, checked in with the workbook, but I ask you to be brutally honest, because the operating in your system, when a shadow, it won't allow you to have that level of honesty, because it threatens your survival. Yeah, and denial, you know, it's the same. So another way of flight codes is like we are holding ourselves back, right? It's like we're dipping our toes in, or we're going halfway in, but we're not going all the way in because it's too risky, right? Laziness is the same thing, procrastination, focusing on analyzing instead of taking actions, right? It's like we think like if you just analyze enough, you can, like get away, keep the distance instead of going in and, doing what needs to do. And our over focusing on others, which is another word for codependence, which is if we can over focus on others, then we can avoid ourselves. So flight codes, how they're showing up in our day-to-day life right now is avoidance. Avoidance. And the freeze codes is like, I don't know if you have had it, you are like, oh, frozen with overwhelm, right? You're paralyzed with overwhelm. Yeah. So frustrating, and shows up as confusion for me, which I know is saboteur. Yeah, but the saboteur is not operating alone, right? I mean, it's just one of, because you actually only have one consciousness, this is like you have different ones that are active. So the freeze codes is like, you all know how to be, frozen with overwhelm, or frozen with the fear of not being perfect enough, or frozen with shame, or frozen with, I don't know what's the right choice, or frozen with fear of not being approved of, right? It's like, that's the freeze mode. And it will get you all the time. Got me all the time, right? It's still getting me, not very much anymore, but it's still there, right? It's like I go into freeze mode. And the fear of not being approved of, they can be, I think my followers are not going to like it. I don't, I'm afraid my audience is not going to like it. I'm afraid my mentor is not going to like it. I'm afraid I'm not perfect enough. I have so much shame about all these, shadows still being, still being active. I don't know if I'm choosing the right business, or this is the right offer. Like all this doubt. And then when you don't get immediate results, you start doubting everything, right? And just the overwhelm too. So these codes are still, and I wanted to go into this because we all know that fight, flight, and freeze, they're coded into our body, right? It's like a very physical, adrenal thing that when the mind feels threatened, you get this fight, flight, freeze response. But the point of this is like it's also true for our power codes. It's not just true for our shadow codes that are in our body, it's true for our power codes too. They're already in there, which is what I'm saying, money in your body. So the shadow codes is like all about surviving. It cannot take you beyond surviving. It's all fear-based, right? Survival is to do with fear. The point of fear is to keep you from going into life-threatening situations. Yeah, more fear of not being approved. And it's a sneaky one, right? Because, and I'm going to talk more about this tomorrow, but the fear of not being approved of has to do with the fear of death, the fear of dying. Because if people don't approve of you, you're going to be kicked out of the tribe where the saber-toothed tiger is waiting to have you for lunch. Right? It's like really, really, really powerful how we need the approval. So powerlessness, right? It's like you don't have the power, and you think there's power in surviving, right? But it's like really a powerlessness that comes to when fear takes over, you lose your power, right? You can't feel the fear, or most of the time it's like fear and power, can't coexist. There are times when, and I was thinking about this, that how do you know when it's intuition? This is when your mind goes like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, I can't believe I'm going to do it. But it's like, it is a fear, but it's like sort of a fear excitement thing. So it's actually not powerlessness. So the victim consciousness, right? It's like, oh, poor me, I don't have the power to do anything. I'm helpless and I got to go out and save others from their bad life. The doubt, right? Because when you constantly have to scan the environment for, is there any dangerous predator out there that's going to have me as a snack? it has to be an element I can't trust, right? So there's always going to be the doubt, can I trust this? Can I trust this? Can I trust this? You can in a shadow code. And also when everything is about survival, it's I was saying before, like the shadow codes, they have this chokehold on you, like, right? They put you in this little, box where it's all about survival. And that means you have no real freedom of choice, because your codes in your consciousness, the operating system in your consciousness, always going to force you back to survival. And of course, it's going to look like money struggle, right? Because struggling for money is exactly what survival looks like. When you're struggling for money, you're surviving. And this is exactly what your shadow codes that are running, the operating system in your consciousness can do for you. They can't go beyond this. And we really want to emphasize this, because people underestimate the stranglehold that shadow codes has on you. It's like, oh yeah, I understand this, I can see why this, and my history and whatever. And all the understanding in the world is not going to change it. I was working on myself. I was doing everything for 28 years to figure out how to, create a sustainable and consistent money overflow. And, I lumped shadow alchemy with just one more method, which is not, it actually goes beyond this. But it's like, me actually getting to the point where I was consistently making 50K plus months and then losing the whole thing, it really showed me how strong a hold shadow codes has on you. That's the only reason I lost this, because I still was animating, giving my power to shadow, living my life from shadow. And you can make a lot of money with shadow, but it's going to be the roller coaster ride, because it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. Remember that I said the roller coaster could take years before you go down. You're still going to go down. So now we're going to go in and look at the power codes. So in the old days, I think this is more a myth than actually real, but hic sunt draconis, right? It's like at the edge of medieval maps where the unknown was, they would put the monsters, the dragons. And I'm putting it here because they are at the edges of the known world, right? They are just outside your comfort zone, of your familiarity zone, right? It's like just outside what you know so well. And of course, what you know so well is what you've been living all your life, which is shadow codes. But what happens, right? We all have had experiences where we have actually lived our power codes. So while they're at the edges, they're not out of reach. They're at the edges because we have pushed them to the edges, right? Because we have like this little basic operating system that is only focused on survive, 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 survive. Whereas at the edges is where the power codes, the dragons, like the power codes of the dragon energy. And so they are there, right? They're on the map, but they have kind of been pushed to the edges, but we can accurately label it as dragons because we actually know what it is, right? It's in us. We cannot not know it. We can just choose what we do about it. So they're pushed at the edges, but we are aware of it, right? And sometimes we're just lucky. We manage to spontaneously activate or animate our power codes. And this is when we will have like a month where we will like make a lot of money, or we will have a period of a lot of money, but we're always going to collapse back into shadow. But they are there, right? The power codes are there, even if they might be at the edges. So what we want to do, we want to bring them in and make that our main operating system. So power codes, they are creating codes. So this is very important because the minute you start looking at creating as opposed to surviving, you get free choice, right? When you're a creator, you choose what you create. It's entirely up to you what you create. And you have the power to create it, right? It's like that's where we become our God self, like the God with a small g, like not a big thing, not a big G, the capitalized G. You know, we're made in the image of God. We are creators. We're creating codes. So the power codes are the creating codes, right? We create with them. And that's done with the collapse. Heather, I'll see it. I'll look for it. The creating codes are to create with. Free reign to create. It's like this whole stranglehold, it isn't there anymore, right? This is what freedoms mean. There's nothing holding you back. There's no restraints on you. So when the power codes are active in you, you animate them, you have power. And I mean, you have real power to command anything you want in your life into being, including a lot of money. If that's what you want, right? You have courage. You are totally willing to jump off the cliff over and over and over again. You don't care, because if this is what you need to do, jump off the cliffs, you know, to create whatever it is that you want to create, you just do it, right? It's like it doesn't matter if it's gay, like risk becomes not even a thing, right? It's like risk is not even a thing anymore. Just like needing other people's approval. It's not even a thing anymore. It doesn't even exist. It's just gone. So you get this courage, and what you have like total belief in yourself. And I can't tell you how wonderful it is to not doubt yourself anymore, to totally trust yourself, right? That you can do this. You have the power to do it. You have the power to create cash. And with that, you know, that confidence and belief in yourself, you have absolute certainty in what you're doing, because, you know, your intuition is on board. And I want to put this in here, that intuition is a power code. It's not a shadow code, right? If you have shadow active, you cannot have intuition active either. And intuition is always going to get you to the fastest path of creating whatever it is that you want to create. And this is why when you follow intuition, whatever it takes you to, it might not be directly money related, you know, if your goal is, you know, money, but a lot of times it's going to seem like magic. Right? It's like I had this experience that I have shared before, like a month ago or so, whatever. I just had this intuitive hitch that, okay, I'm going to reach out to 3 people and invite them to come into my one-on-one container. And one of them just said, yeah. Oh, that was when I got the intuitive nudge to schedule a live stream in my Millionaire Mystics groups. It's like on Outrageous Money, to reschedule it for the next day, and I just went with it. And then, you know, this whole 10K sale came through from my one-on-one container, one-on-one client, who is now also looking to make a 10K sale. So what you really get with the power codes is freedom of choice of what kind of life you're going to create. You don't have that freedom of choice with shadow. It's always going to hold you back. It's always going to restrain you. It's always going to undermine your power. It's always going to undermine whatever you're trying to create. And with the freedom of choice, it's like the choice of how much money do you want to create? How much money do you want to create? Right? Because this is really what we're looking at here. Intuition, and what I'm talking about here is the power codes. I don't really want to go into the genius, because genius is like another set of archetypes. But intuition has to do with when to take which actions. Genius is, you know, kind of frees you from that. So it's like your genius are going to come to anyway. I mean, it's like my genius is to be like a teacher, right? It's like a teacher and a coach. It's like I really like to go in and work with people and help them really get this, which I've been doing in many different ways throughout the years. Like for 13 years, I had a school of natural medicine where I was teaching a lot of these things. I mean, you know, I didn't know about the the 3 levels of life's mastery. So I didn't really know about the operating system and the consciousness, but I definitely did the first 2 levels as part of, your house. It's like you can do it everywhere. It's like most of what you choose to do will be an expression of your genius. Intuition goes together with the power. Yes, Kati. Yes. The power codes, you have the shadow codes, you have the power codes, you have the genius, then you have the dark archetypes, which is where the genius belongs. So intuition goes together with the power, and you can do awesome things with the power. And the thing is, like, the power codes are the fuel for genius, which is why it's so important, right? We can't skip this part. We can't skip this part. You need to reach. It's like you got to alchemize the critical mass of shadow in order to really begin to get the power codes online. And then you got to have a critical mass of power codes, like really animate them. And then, you come into the genius codes. The way you have been working with intuition or not having much is changing. Okay, interesting, Andrea. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it either. Okay, so this is why we want the power codes online, because it gives you freedom of choice. As a creator, remember, power codes are creating codes, to really create whatever it is that you want to create, and you will have the power and the self-belief and the certainty and magic on your side, right? It's like power codes are always going to have your back. Shadow codes are always going to undermine everything you try to do. Create. Power codes will always, I don't say enable, right? It's like power codes are always going to enable you to create whatever it is that you want to create. So here's the thing, right? The power codes are already in you too, just like the shadow codes are. So here are a few examples when it's like how you might have seen them operate. I'm sure you have seen this operate in your life, right? You decided you wanted something and it kind of magically appeared, right? It's like something like when my son was ready for a tricycle. I remember I decided one evening, okay, I got to get a tricycle for my son. And the next day, my friend calls up and says, hey, I'm cleaning out the garage and I'm just about to throw my tricycle away from my daughter who doesn't need it anymore. Do you want it? And when I don't know what you want to create, we will get to that, Melinda, right? We are going to get to this because it doesn't actually really matter if you know exactly what you create, because when you're living in shadow, it's not the life that you want to live and you want to change it, right? And I'm going to talk about how you start with this tomorrow. So another way that you've seen the power codes operating in your life is when you have set a goal and you have met it. I mean, even just, I'm going to go to university and get a degree, or I'm going to get a job. And, it's like we have done it so many times. We have set a goal and we have met it, right? It's like, that's when the power codes have been active. Or when good things happens out of nowhere, because magic is also part of the power codes. So they have already been operating in your life, but sort of on the edges, like with the map I showed you. So this is the one with the roller coaster. This is why we're doing the roller coaster. This is a picture, an image from a book that's called The Path of Least Resistance by Robert Fritz. So I just want to give a credit to this. You don't need to go and read the book. So it's a stranglehold of shadow codes. Now, if you imagine you're in a room with 2 walls, and one wall to the left represents the shadow codes, and the wall to the right is your dream life, represents your dream life. And you imagine yourself like being connected with a rubber band around your waist to each of these walls, right? And here you're moving towards your dream life. And as you're moving towards your dream life, the rubber that's connecting you to the shadow coach wall is going to be stretched and stretched and stretched. And eventually it's going to snap you back to where it can ensure your survival, right? It's like, remember the shadow codes, they only have one function, that is survival. And this is why it will stop you from doing anything that seems too risky or different. You know, anything different, you doing anything different is going to be seen as a threat, like a threat to your survival by the shadow code. So they're always going to pull you back, right? But this is why it's like you can push and push and push toward your dream life. But eventually, if you don't really change the operating system in your consciousness for real, and start animating and living from the power codes, you're always gonna, you know, lose it again and collapse into shadow. And when I said that, you know, I used to make these 50K plus months and it all collapsed, I lost it all, right? This is exactly what happened. I snapped right back, because even if I was doing a lot to alchemize my shadows into power codes, I wasn't really doing it, right? I was just using it as a means to make more money. I wasn't really working completely, you know, as a way to change the operating system in my consciousness. Or I did it until I hit a certain level, and then I got complacent because it really didn't matter. You know, there are several different layers to it, but, you know, basically this is what happened. I snapped it back, you know, like for 2 years, I was working up towards my dream life. And then the stranglehold of shadow was still there. It got me and I snapped back and I lost it all, right? And this is a collapse we're always going to have. So this is the income roller coaster that I said it could take years, you know, it could take months, it could take days, it could take years, right? It's always going to snap you back. So the real work you have to do if you want sustainable and consistent money overflow, because, you know, we're coming back to the money, you have to install the power codes as your new consciousness operating system. You have no choice. And this work is hard as hell because you have like millions of years of evolution to work against. And this is, you know, some of you know this, you know, some of you have even worked with me, had the same experience as me, you know, with collapsing after having gotten to a point where you have made a lot of money. But what I want to do is really dig into how specifically it shows up as, you know, being unable to create a sustainable and consistent money overflow. Because this is what you want, right? You want the sustainable and consistent money overflow. And the only way to get there is to change the operating system of your consciousness. So the origin of the codes, they're the archetypes, right? So you have the coding of the archetypes. So the archetypes has been around for a long time. It's not new. It's always been there, but each archetype holds specific codes. And these are the codes of our consciousness. The archetypes codes our consciousness, creates our consciousness operating system. So we're really going to go in and work with the archetypal magic or the archetypal alchemy, because there's no other way of doing it except by alchemizing. So some of you already know this, right? We have 4 channels of archetypes. We have the prostitute lover, we have the child sovereign, we have the victim warrior, we have the saboteur and magician. And the shadow archetypes, or the archetypes that hold the shadow codes, are the prostitute, child, victim, and saboteur. And the archetypes that hold the power codes are the lover, sovereign, warrior, and magician. And I chose the pictures here very, very specifically. So the prostitute is, you know, selling your soul for money. It's like the bleeding heart. It's like the need for approval. The child is the fantasy. The victim is like being tied up, feeling powerless. The saboteur is all being all analytical. The lover is not about, lover as in romance or whatever, but it's like the quality of life that is really concerned about. The sovereign is the ruler, the warrior is the doer, the magician is to figuring out what. So what you want to have in mind here is like you only have one consciousness. Even if you have 4 channels, you only have one consciousness. So either you have the shadow codes operating system in your consciousness, or you have the power codes as the operating system in your consciousness. It's either or. It's not both and. You can't be in child and lover at the same time, for example. You're either all in the shadow codes or you're all in the power codes. And the work here is for us to alchemize up into the power codes. And I very specifically use the word alchemy, because as we go into this, and the remaining 4 days is really going to be, looking at these. The alchemy is because the shadow codes, they are very low frequency. They're very dense energy, and they totally suck at creating a wonderful life. Remember, they're all about surviving. They can't actually give you anything beyond survival. Whereas the power codes, they are really, really, really powerfully, very high frequency, very highly magnetic, in attracting and creating, and they are very light. So you're going to take each shadow code and alchemize it into a power code, right? It's like an either or. And the point is, and some of you know this, it's like, it seems like you're doing shadow alchemy over and over and over and over again. You're not getting anywhere until suddenly one day you kind of hit that critical mass, right? And suddenly you start operating more from the power codes. Now, why does it matter? It matters because this is how we create anything, right? So, and again, I'm going to go more in detail with this over the other days, how this really works. But the prostitute lover channel has to do with what do we want, and if the shadow, it's about, how can I survive, whereas when it's a lover, it's like, how can I create my dream life? What else can I create for my dream life, right? And then the child and sovereign, it's like kind of has to do with your power. Do you have the power to create it or not? The child is powerless to create it. Sovereign has all the power in the world. I'm going to go in and talk about this, And do you feel powerless to take actions? Do you feel overwhelmed? The warrior just say, yeah, I'm going to go out and do it. I don't care. I'll go out and fight all the battles. And the saboteur is like very analytical and try to reason everything out, which is why the chess, whereas a magician is, it's like this wonder and magic and something else, is really, the intuition. Intuition is actually in all the power channels. So we want this, right? Because even if the creation process always goes, from prostitute lover to child sovereign to victim warrior to the saboteur or magician, the shadow, when the archetypes that you're creating from are the shadow archetypes, it can only create survival. Right? The shadow archetypes can only, or the shadow codes from the shadow archetypes can only create survivals. It's still the same process, right? What can I do next? What do I want in order to survive? Whereas a lover is like, how can I create my dream life? What do I want? What do I want? How am I going to go about it? And then the power codes of the power archetypes, they are then going to make it possible because they have the codes to create, which is something that goes far beyond survival. So I think it got to the end of this. Yeah. So what I really want you to think about, this is a really important question. How do you live your life? It's not what life do you live or why do you live this life, but how do you live your life? And I'm going to put up a workbook that is going to, prompt you to go in and look at how have you lived in your life in the past? How are you living it now? How do you want to live it in the future? And it's like, I already know shadow in the past, power in the future, but I actually want you to dig deeper. right? Because it's easy enough to have a fantasy about, yeah, I'm going to go in and, you know, just do the power codes in the future. As a fantasy that doesn't really have any real substance to it, and how you're going to get that substance and solidity so that you actually start doing it is what I'm going to go in and talk about for the next 4 days. Because again, remember, you need the power codes activated if you want sustainable and consistent money overflow. So also, of course, yeah, the shadow archetypes is what you have been operating in with the in the past, but I want you to really dig in, because, you know, minimization, right? It's like the shadow codes makes you minimize the impact of having shadow running your life, right? Shadow codes makes you minimize. And this is why I asked you to be brutally honest, right? Because I want you to take the blindness off and see how deep the shadow codes are embedded in your psyche, right? Because only when you really see the extent are you actually going to be willing to do the work, instead of having a fantasy about how easy it is. Because even shadow codes, they're going to make you minimize the impact of shadow running your life, but it's also going to minimize the amount of work it's actually going to take to change it, right? Because it's like your survival is threatened. It will see changes, any kind of changes it will see as a threat to your survival, which is why I want you to go deeper, right? It's not enough to say, oh, in the future, I'm going to live from my power. It's if it was that easy, everybody would already be doing it, right? So I'm really excited going into this, you know, over the next 4 days, and really dive deep so that we can really get your power codes online, really dig into the heart of the matter. Okay. It wasn't a lot of questions, but you got this. So good luck. And feel free to post anything in the group. This is what it's for. Any questions, any shadows, anything. This is what the group is for. Okay. See you there.